Lightbearers, Treasure in Fragile Vessels. Take 1, by Elliot Dillon. Gazer, Chapter 8. Landing on the ground with a hard thud, Jeremiah tasted dirt, a fact which confirmed in his mind that this was actually happening. Looking up from his position on the ground, he stared at the two people he'd been having visions of for weeks. Through the portal they had looked small, but now in person he saw how large they actually were. Or, he stood and found that only the man was still tall, measuring in at least 6 feet. Beside him the girl looked even smaller, the top of her head coming just to the man's mid-chest. Both were clad in completely black outfits that he now saw were not anything like bikers' outfits, at least not in as far as what the girl was wearing. Her wardrobe consisted of a long-sleeved shirt over which she put gauntlets on the wrists. On her hands, she wore fingerless gloves with fingers only on the first 2 fingers of her hands. With the shirt, she wore a black leather underbust bodice. The shirt had a baggy neckline, which he soon realized was just a kind of scarf she could pull up over the bottom half of her face. Across her back, she wore a sling, which when she turned to talk to the man, revealed her to be equipped with a collapsible bow and quiver full of metal-tipped arrows. Her pants seemed to be cotton, with a satchel attached to one of her thighs that looked like it could have held small daggers or deadly implements. As a whole, she looked like a steampunk thief. "It's about time you got here," stated the girl as she looked him over. His attention moved from her clothing as he finally noticed her face, which had big brown eyes and black hair, which was cut short in a pixie cut, with the left side of her bangs longer so that it swooped down into her eyes. She swished her bangs to the side now as she looked toward her companion, who hadn't moved since she'd pulled Jeremiah into the world. The man looked even more intimidating in person with his armor-plated leather jacket and pants. Fully clad in leather with a set of black fighting gloves, he did not reveal an inch of skin as he wore a pair of thin gloves under his mitts. Seeing the whole ensemble, Jeremiah did not know how the guy wasn't hot. To make his outfit even more uncomfortable, the man was wearing a helmet which was black, with a large visor that was so dark Jeremiah couldn't see his face. "Who are you people?" The girl grinned as she replied, "Believe it or not, we're the good guys." He was confused even more by her statement as he looked at the man, who seemed to be staring at him, though he couldn't be sure with his helmet covering his face. Noticing the uncomfortable way Jeremiah was staring at her companion, the girl assured him, "Momo won't hurt you, right?" She turned to the man as she patted his chest. "As long as you're not an Oni, or a Tengu, you have nothing to worry about." Turning back to the teen, she introduced herself as she said, "I'm Pathma, but everyone calls me Lot on account of my name means lotus. And this, well, I call him Momo on account of he's my peach. You can call him that too." "Where am I?" The girl smiled as if it was the greatest news as she replied, "This is your future." For a moment, Jeremiah wondered what it felt like to have a stroke. He was at least 80% sure that that was what he was feeling as the girl hurried over and helped him to sit back down on the ground. "You okay? You look a little green." "What do you mean this is the future?" The girl looked back at the man for guidance, but he didn't say anything. Turning back to Jeremiah, she said, "It just is. There's nothing else I can say about it." But how?" "You're a gazer," explained the girl. "You create portals into other times in order to see the future or the past." "How do I get back?" Stumbling to his feet, he turned back to the spot the portal had once occupied. "I need to get back." Lot made a sound, and as he turned to look at her, he saw her making a funny expression as she said, "Well, you see, we don't know exactly how to get you back. We're not even sure if a gazer is supposed to come through their portals or not." "What?" "I just saw your hand floating in the middle of the air and my instinct told me to grab it. I'm sorry." Dropping back to the ground, Jeremiah rested his head in his hands as he let out a slow groan. "I'm sorry, buddy, but maybe if you travel with us, we'll find a way to get you home." Though he wanted to yell at her, to ask her what she was thinking in grabbing him, he felt too overwhelmed by it all to do anything. Leaving him to think over her suggestion, she walked over to the man, saying something to him in a language that sounded like a mix between Japanese and something else. "What language is that?" "It's a mix between Japanese and Thai. My mother was Thai and my dad was Japanese, so I learned both before coming here. Momo and I speak in a mix of language in order to confuse our enemies." "And who are your enemies in this post-apocalyptic future?" "The Oni and the Tengu, of course." He heard the names before when he and Brian had first gotten into martial arts and had studied everything having to do with Asian cultures. "You're saying there are actual Oni and Tengu wandering around the world now?" She shook her head as she explained, "That's just what we call them. They're the henchmen of Thatsakan." What? That's what we call him. Other people refer to him as the false ruler. She might as well have been speaking her Thai Japanese again for all he understood. When she decided that he had learned enough, she turned back to Momo and said, "Let's get the bike." Again, he didn't know what she was saying till she had him follow them to a large rock. Pulling the rock aside, which turned out to be a cover, she revealed a motorcycle which looked like something they built on their own. "I call him Crusher," stated Lot as she stroked the seat of the vehicle. "One question," stated Jeremiah as he started the bike. "Where do I sit?" This seemed to have not occurred to her as she looked at the long seat on the back. It could fit 2 people, but there was no way they were getting a 3rd person on there. "I guess we're going to have to find a dealership." Putting the cover back on the hiding place for the bike, Lot told him to follow them as they headed back through the wasteland. It turned out they weren't in that large of a wasteland, as after a few minutes he saw the outline of a cityscape. As they drew closer, he realized it was not so much a city as a collection of rubble. Through the mass of concrete and iron, Lot led the way as she told Jeremiah about the future. "Thatsakan has a lot of people tricked into thinking he's the rightful ruler of this world, but he's not. And while other fighters are going around freeing people from the darkness he's been using to keep them in his clutches, we're on a super secret mission." "What's that?" "We're gonna find the feathered gauntlets." His eyes rose at the name as he asked, "Did you name that too?" She looked offended as she replied, "No! What kind of name is Feathered Gauntlet? It evokes no fear. It should be called The Right of the Source, or Vengeance. I wouldn't even mind the name Dark's Bane." "Actually, that one's really cool." Looking back at Momo, she asked, "Can we call it that? It can be our code name." The man didn't make a move that indicated to Jeremiah whether he was against the idea or not, but Lot read something in his demeanor that said he was for it as she cheered, "Great! Now our secret mission is even safer because they won't even know what we're talking about." "And what is this Dark's Bane?" "Dark's Bane. There's actually 2 of them, and when combined, they are said to summon an army of great warriors which will defeat the forces of darkness." He looked at her for a moment, then asked, "Are you sure this is my future?" She nodded. "Since you're a gazer, your vision of the future is somewhat clouded, so this isn't exactly what your future will look like. It's more like a really vivid dream. You know, how sometimes when you dream things aren't always 100% accurate? Is any of it real? I don't know how much of it is real for you, but for us it seems pretty real. You are still seeing things as they are actually happening, just clouded with the lens of vision. If this is a vision, could I really just be at this moment standing in the woods while dreaming all of this? I don't know. Maybe. I don't really understand gazing all that much, but it's a gift from the Source, and the Source? Our Creator, the actual ruler of this world. He is the one giving you this vision of the future. He is the one who grants you the ability to look into people's hearts. But he's only shown you a glimpse into the future, with some things appearing as symbols. At least, that's how it's been explained to me." She looked at Momo, who nodded ever so slightly. "Yeah, that's why things seem a little off to you." Up ahead, they came to a lot which looked like it once might have been a parking lot. Near the back, they found a car which, when Lot tried to open it, turned out to be locked. Come on, why don't people trust enough to leave their cars unlocked anymore? Reaching toward the pack on her leg, she pulled out a flat metal device, which she spun apart to make it longer. Using the object, she jimmied the lock before opening the door as she ducked inside to work on getting the car to start. "If you're a good guy, how do you know how to do this?" Looking back at Jeremiah, she gave him a wink as she said, "Haven't you ever heard of reformed thieves?" Looking back to her work, she explained, "My dad was a big-time thief in Japan. He basically stole anything that wasn't screwed down, and even then that didn't deter him. When the cops came close to catching him on one job, he escaped to Thailand where he met my mom. After she had died and he was left with me, he went back to stealing stuff, but again he got a little too greedy and the cops were onto him. That's when we came here." She smiled as the car purred to life. "The way we shop for cars was by going to the local grocery store and picking the prettiest one in the parking lot." Scooting across to the passenger seat, she let Momo take the wheel as she motioned for Jeremiah to get in the back. Once he had, Momo put the car in gear as they zoomed out of the dusty old parking lot. As they traveled down the broken road, Jeremiah heard a sound and turned to see a group of cars zooming after them. "Oh no, the Oni are after us." Opening the sunroof, she extended her bow as she loaded an arrow in it, aiming at the car as she let one fire. The lead car swerved to the side as the arrow pierced its tire so that it was thrown off course. As the other 2 Oni cars continued after them, Jeremiah heard a screech and looked out through the back window at a sight that almost made him scream. 3 large creatures that looked like manly harpies flew toward them, looking angry as they screeched at them. Those would be the Tengu, explained Lot. Pretty dead-on name, right? All he could do was nod as he was too stunned to talk. Getting back into the car, Lot patted Momo's arm as she told him, "It's time you made like fancy and got us out of here." The helmeted man nodded as he spun the wheel quickly to the left, knocking Jeremiah over as the car's tires screeched with a sudden turn. Behind them, the cars weren't expecting the change in direction and had to brake as they readjusted. This gave their car time to get ahead as they were only left with the Tengu in close pursuit. "Can't you fire some arrows at them and slow them down?" asked Jeremiah. "I've just recently come into the light," explained Lot. "My light isn't bright enough to defeat Tengu, or even really do anything other than give them an annoying paper cut." "Then annoy them!" With a shrug, Lot again rose out of the sky roof as she aimed at a Tengu. Her arrow flew true as it hit the creature in the chest. The only thing it seemed to do was make the monster angrier, as it let out a guttural cry that made it and its friends speed up their flight. "Ah, flapjacks, I made it mad!" Ducking back into the car, she closed the sunroof as she told Momo, "I think it's time we tried Plan Ostrich." Before Jeremiah could ask what that was, Momo slammed on the brakes and put the car in reverse, something the Tengu weren't expecting as they flew over the vehicle. Behind them, the Oni cars had just about caught up when Momo zoomed between them, spinning the car around as he put it back in drive and raced the car back toward the city. Dodging rubble and other objects, the car raced through the deserted city at breakneck speed. "Watch out!" called Jeremiah, as he saw the city was not in fact deserted. Braking just in time, he watched as a group of people walked in front of the car, looking miserable as chains clattered around their legs and arms. Some of the people wore blindfolds in addition to the change and looked especially miserable as they made their way across the intersection. "We call them chained," explained Lot as she noticed him staring at the people. "What, no fancy name?" He looked away from their chains to their clothing, but saw nothing that helped him know how far in the future he'd come. She shook her head sadly. "No, there's no levity with them. I was once a chained." She slid down her sleeve and cuff to reveal a bruise that was about the same size as the chains on the wrists of the people outside the cars. Who exactly are the chained? Those that haven't yet realized they are lost in darkness and have yet to see the light? She motioned to those without blindfolds. Or those who have seen the light but haven't yet made a decision in their hearts whether they will choose it or continue in the darkness? What happens if they decide to stay in the darkness? Before she could answer, they heard the screaming of the Oni's cars. Turning the vehicle's wheel, Momo shifted the car around as they continued down the street. "We need to get some cover." Looking off to the side, she called for Momo to head in a different direction as she said, "Bingo!" Inside a structure that looked like a dilapidated parking garage, Momo parked their pilfered vehicle between two others as Lot ordered them to get out. Down the line of cars, they snuck back to the entrance as outside, the Oni's vehicles drove past and the sounds faded into the distance. Outside the parking garage, Lot led them to a line of bushes where she stopped. Holding out her hand in front of Jeremiah, she whispered back, "Don't let anyone see you." She pointed to another group of chained. "They might not have made their decision yet, but if they see us, they might decide to rat us out." When the chained had passed, they continued on, coming to a sign in a hole that reminded him of a subway entrance. Without thought for safety, Lot leapt down into the darkness, followed by Momo, who more carefully let himself down by hanging over the side. When he was the only one left, she called up to him, "Come on, buddy, don't worry, Momo's got you." The thought didn't fill him with the greatest sense of manliness, but when he dropped down, he found the man did have him as Momo caught him, then set him down gently. "Thanks." "By the by," stated Lot as she started to head deeper into darkness, "I didn't catch your name." "It's Jeremiah." "It's nice to meet you, Jerry." "Don't call me Jerry, I hate that name." "Okay, forget I even started to say it." There was a sound off to the side and he turned to see a dark shape move through the shadows. From what he could see from the light coming in from the hole they'd come down, whatever it was had fur and was the size of a medium dog. "What is that?" "I call it an ROUS. Momo just calls it a rat." At the mention of the rodent's name and the memory of what he had seen, he started back for the hole. Lot was quicker as she grabbed his shirt collar and pulled him back. "Trust me, it's a lot worse out there than down here." Though he didn't see how, he continued with them further into the darkness. At the end of a platform, Momo leapt down onto the tracks, then helped Lot down. He reached out for Jeremiah next, but the team informed the man he was fine. After he'd fallen on his backside, he got up and hurried after them. "Stay close to the wall," instructed Lot. "The trains still come through, and I really wouldn't want you to get killed." Just then they heard a loud horn, and Lot forced his body back against the wall as a large train zoomed past. Through the window he spotted more people, all with chains on their wrists and some with grotesque masks. When the train was gone, Lot let up on him and they continued forward. "Did you see the ones with masks?" asked the girl as Momo opened a door in the side of the tunnel for them. Those are the Oni. They are ones you especially want to watch out for. They have chosen to live by the dark. The ones that look especially angry have even gone so far as to serve Thoughtsicon. They are the ones that are going to be hell-bent on finding and destroying us. The thought of being hunted down made Jeremiah queasy. He had never been a fan of danger. Thinking about it, he realized how jealous Brian would have been if he'd known his friend was experiencing all this, and how much fun he would have had if their situations had been switched. Why do I have such a weird friend? Walking through the inner workings of the subway tunnel, Momo took the lead as Lot stayed in back with Jeremiah. Noting the intense look in the man's stance, he asked the girl, "What's with the helmet?" "It's to prevent head injuries." As if that was the most reasonable explanation. "I know, but why is he still wearing it when we're not even on a bike?" "He fights too. It would be bad if he got hit in the head during a fight, don't you think?" Even though this also sounded reasonable, he didn't understand the choice in headgear. Surely he could have chosen something that wasn't so intimidating and kept people from seeing his face. "Momotaro is an Oni slayer," continued Lot, as if her words were part of the explanation. "If he's going to defeat them, it helps to look as intimidating as them. I tried to get him to emblazon a crushed Oni mask on his back, but he just likes his plain all-black look." She made a face like a pout, as if this fact upset her. Sensing something there, he asked, "Are you guys a couple?" She laughed, swatting his arm as she fanned herself with the other. "You're making me blush. I don't get it." Leaving his question unanswered, she headed up to where Momo had stopped to listen to something. "What do you hear, Momo?" He raised his hand for silence, and they listened together. After a moment, Lot perked up as she said, "They're shutting down the station. They know we're down here." Hurrying through, they reached the end of the maintenance area and came out in another tunnel, which led them to another station. Without having time to protest, Momo lifted Jeremiah up onto the platform, followed by Lot. "We've got company," stated Lot as Momo pulled himself up. From either side of the platform, a group of people poured down, coming to a stop as they formed a circle around the group. Each of the people had a face that looked like a Japanese Oni mask with fangs almost as long as their horns and a sinister grin. The most frightening thing of all was their eyes, which did not blink as they stared at them with a hollow gaze. While Lot knocked her bow with blunt-end arrows, Momo ran at the closest Oni, using his gloved hand to hit the creature in the gut. While he did this, another man ran at him from his left, but was stopped by an arrow to his throat before he could swing. The attack made the man cough as he grabbed his neck and stumbled to the side, while the rest of his companions swarmed Momo, who effortlessly flipped one Oni over his shoulder, while he knocked another one back with a donkey kick. "Why are you hitting them with sharp arrows?" asked Jeremiah, as he watched her hit another opponent with her nerf-ended arrows. "We don't want to hurt them." Her statement contradicted what he was seeing, as he watched Momo hit one guy so hard he fell back onto a bench, causing it to crack under him. Noting where he was looking, Lot explained, "Momo has a little bit of an anger issue, but he is working through it." "Be gentle, Momo," called the girl. "The store still loves them, even if they chose Thoughtsicon over him." As Momo calmed down, he started to clear a path for them, which Lot further increased the size of as she pelted the crowd with her arrows. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" asked Jeremiah as he kept close to her. "I was really into video games as a teenager, and I loved to play games where I could use the bow and arrow. Finally, I took lessons and have been doing it ever since." Once they'd gotten through the group of masked attackers, they hurried up a flight of stairs to the surface, where a group of Oni were waiting with their cars, which had a futuristic look to them. Lot let out a slow groan as a small group came to a stop in front of the cars. As another group of Oni got out of the cars, she lamented aloud, "I wish we had a warrior." Jeremiah was about to ask what that was when one of the cars exploded in front of them. Ducking as rubble flew, he lifted his eyes to see a man with arms as large as a gorilla's standing in the smoke of the burning car. Letting out a snort of air through his nose like an ox, the man raised his hand in which he held a sword, which glowed with an otherworldly light. Seeing the light made the Oni nearby hiss as they turned their attention to him. "You go ahead," called the man. "I'll take care of these guys." Calling out a thanks, the group turned the other way as they hurried down the street. At another parking garage, Lot acquired, as she dubbed it, another car for them. As they drove back out of the city, Jeremiah asked her who the man had been and, "Are you sure we should have just left him? What if they overwhelm him?" "The darkness can try to overwhelm the light, but it'll never happen. The light is far stronger. At times it might extinguish the light for a time, but a new wielder will just stand in their place." He wasn't sure of what any of what she'd said had meant, but he was beginning to feel tired from all the running. Curling up into a ball in the back seat, he fell asleep. Speaker, Chapter 12. 3 days passed while everyone else continued to go on as normal in Elijah's home, at least on the surface. Under the surface, his father grumbled with aggravation at the fact that Elijah's homeless kitten was still living with him. On the other hand, his mother was like the mother hen he'd known her as when he'd first come to live with them, as she treated Jean like a little lost lamb. The girl didn't seem to mind, as she kept close to the woman, listening to her talk, or helping her with whatever she was working on as they bonded. Elijah found the two together one day after school, where they were engaged in a deep discussion. His mom asked questions, while the young lady replied by pointing to words on the page of a book. On closer inspection, he found the book to be the Book of Light, which seemed to glow as light was gained from it. "Elijah," called his mother after noticing his presence. "You have to read this. Jean has been sharing some things with me I never knew. Like, did you know the source did not abolish any of the tablets, but it was man who changed things?" "I think I'd heard that." The woman motioned for him to come over so Jean could point out the text to him and the historical evidence that supported it. As he looked at the book, he noticed it was the same one he'd seen in the girl's apartment. "Where did you get this?" "We went to Jean's place and got the rest of her things." His mother started to look upset as she continued. "When we got there, the landlord had already moved someone into her place and thrown all her things into the trash. We were only able to find her books and a few clothes. I've been trying to talk Jean into letting me take her out to get some new things." The girl shook her head, as if to reinforce something she'd been arguing with her about for a while. "You've already done enough," added the girl, with an already written note. Though he was glad to see his mom warming up to the girl, he was not so sure his father would like it. After all, he had seemed that morning to want her out by the time he got home. "Don't you think she's been here long enough?" This conclusion was further emphasized when his dad came home later and asked his mother why the girl was still there. "Where do you expect her to go? She's barely had enough time to sleep, and you expect her to find a place in only a few days? I just don't want her to become another one of your projects. We do not need another mouth to feed. Maybe if you eat a little less, we can manage it." This seemed to quiet the man as he huffed toward the living room and turned on the ET. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, though his mother had insisted Jean didn't need to, the girl was helping out in order to earn her stay. While she admitted she wasn't great with cooking, his mother had learned she was great with numbers. After balancing the family's checkbook, as her mother still used the phrase, she helped the woman find areas in which the family could get more money back after paying their taxes. "What's she doing now?" asked Devin, as he came into the room where Jean was working. "She's seeing about getting grants and scholarships for my college." "But you're not done with school yet." "She's already applied for scholarships for you, and is pretty confident you're going to get in." "No way! I don't even know what I want to do yet." The mother came in as she said, "You're going to be a doctor or preacher. I haven't decided which yet." His brother objected as he said, "Shouldn't I get a say in my future? You've already tried that. It's time you let someone else take the wheel for a while." As the two argued on their way out of the room, Elijah took a seat at the table with Jean. "If the end is coming, why are you working on getting grants for my college?" Pulling out a piece of paper, she said, "It's just in case this is the path the Source wants you to go down." "Don't you know what path the Source has planned out for me?" "He does not reveal everything, just what I need to know at the present time, and a few things about the future." "What kinds of things?" Her expression was similar to when he'd seen her on the bus, pleading with the Source. He reasoned she had not yet accepted all the Source had planned for her. Changing the subject for her sake, he asked, "Are we still going to be leaving?" "I believe we will, but only after we have adequately finished here." "What does that mean?" "Your family will not be ready for your leaving, but it is important they have the groundwork for getting through it." He let out a sigh as he thought about the way his parents would react when he told them he was leaving. Half of him wanted to just go without telling them, but he knew this would be worse for them. Then the other half of him did not want to go at all. Why does this have to be so hard? As he leaned forward to rest his head in his hands, Jean touched his shoulder. Sliding the paper into his line of sight, she'd written, "I have been here. The Source will get you through it, just as he did me." Dreamer, Chapter 8. Pulling out her sword, the young girl looked ready to face off when a voice called through the trees, "Don't bother, Noah. There are too many of us." "Says you," called back the girl, but the usual fire in her eyes had diminished slightly as she looked less sure about whether she could take all of them on. As the mask stopped moving, Ezekiel heard the sound of air breathing in and out as a man stepped out of the woods. His face was covered by a hood, which overshadowed his face, but from what Ezekiel could see, it did not look like he had a rage's face. As the man moved, the sound of breathing sounded more prevalent, as Ezekiel looked down to see the sound was coming from his legs, which were made completely of metal, which exhaled like a set of pneumatic gears. Ignoring the boy completely, the man with the metal legs focused his attention on Noah as he ordered, "Put the sword away. I won't let them hurt you." "And why should I believe you?" There was anger in the girl's voice, mixed with something else he couldn't read. "How do you find us anyway?" "You know how." He moved towards her and she slid her stance back as she ordered, "Stay back or I'll bust up your pretty little legs." "Be reasonable." "I am being reasonable. You're the one that's not being reasonable." He let out a tired sigh as he rubbed the area where his eyes would be in the shadows of his hood. "You are 16 years old. Don't act like a child. It's time you made decisions for yourself and stopped relying on the fairy tales of others. They're not fairy tales, and I have made decisions for myself, so just get back." She brandished her sword at the man, but Ezekiel did not think it looked threatening in the least. Before the man could respond, there was a sound like wind in the trees, and Ezekiel felt his heart race within his chest as he remembered the sound the night marchers had made when they had come after them. As the branches above parted, Ezekiel wrapped his arms around his head as he ducked down, just as shapes started falling through. When he didn't hear the sound of screaming or feel his flesh being ripped from his skin, he opened his eyes to find the rage masks lying on the ground as a group of warriors with glistening swords stood over them. To the side, the cyborg was displaying an unhappy stance as two of the warriors pointed their blades at him. "I don't think so," stated the man as he air-kicked their swords out of their hands, then turned and ran back through the woods. "Who are you?" one of the rescuers asked Noah. "I'm just a simple fish, looking for a safe pond," replied the girl, which did not make any sense to Ezekiel but seemed to mean something to the men. "Come with us before they awake." Following the group, the two made their way deeper into the woods. "Who was that guy?" whispered Ezekiel to Noah as he indicated back toward the direction they had come from. When she didn't seem to understand his question, he added, "Metal legs. That's the false dreamer. He was once a dreamer, but he turned to Kuka's side to use his talents and knowledge of the light to bring darkness to the land. He has been a great hindrance to the spreading of the light and encourages the loss of souls to the darkness." He could tell the thought of it upset her, so did not press the issue further as they continued on in silence. After a while, they came into another clearing where their guides let out a bird call, which made a tree shake as another one of them climbed down to meet them. "Is it safe?" asked the newly grounded man. "Not for much longer. We just left a group of masks back half a mile. You better get inside." Letting out another call, the group headed toward a set of trees, which began to shake as they rumbled to the side, revealing a cave entrance which had been hidden by the two tree trunks. Inside, the cave was dark, but the men led them through without any light for assistance, as if they had the path memorized. Up ahead they spotted a light as they entered a large cavern in which a group of people were gathered. While the other men remained behind, a man that seemed to be the leader of the group led Noah and Ezekiel back to a section of the cave which was set up with a tent-like structure. The man told them to wait as he went inside. After a moment, he called for them to come in after him. Inside, they found the tent to be occupied by an elderly man who looked as run down and ragged as the city outside. "Welcome," stated the man in a croaky voice. "And who might you be?" "I am Noah, and this is Ezekiel. He's a dreamer." The two men looked at Ezekiel, taking in his outfit, which caused them doubt as the younger man asked, "Are you sure?" Noah nodded with complete assurance as she said, "Trust me." Though Ezekiel wasn't sure how the statement changed their minds, it did, as the men now gazed at him with wonderment as the older said, "But we heard there was—" "Trust me," interrupted Noah. "He's a dreamer, and he's going to lead us to the Book of Light." "Many have perished looking for the book," stated the man. "Are you sure you want to risk your lives on that journey?" Ezekiel wanted to say no, but Noah answered before him, "Yes, we are determined." He wanted to tell her to speak for herself, but the old man spoke before he could. "I like your spunk. All right, we'll help you as much as we can. We only have a little light among ourselves, as we did not prepare as much as we should have for this darkness. But the little we have, we give freely. I hope it helps." She nodded, thanking him, as the younger man that had led them in took them outside the tent. While the man took Noah off to refit her sword, Ezekiel remained behind, where he was surrounded by a group of young girls. "Hi, what's your name?" asked one girl. Before he could answer, another girl replied, "You're cute," which made all the girls laugh embarrassedly. Thanks." Looking back to where Noah had gone, the girls noticed and asked, "Is that your girlfriend?" Before he could respond, Noah popped up from the other side as she replied firm, "Ew, no!" He wasn't offended by her disgusted response, as he found her too weird for his taste. "I thought you were off doing something with your sword." "I forgot. I need my dreamer." Taking a hold of his hand, she led him back to where the man was waiting. Though he tried to be there for her, the man seemed to be speaking in another language, as he performed the ritual he had seen her do with the refugees. While she held her blade out to him, he placed his hands over it, as sections of it that had been dark before began to glow. As the man spoke his words, which before had sounded like another language, they started to make sense as Ezekiel heard him say, "This sword is two-edged because it contains two testaments to the power of the source, both being important in helping us to be able to understand the one before and the one after. You must live according to this complete light in order to stay pure. Don't just listen to it, but do what it says. Obey. In doing so, the source will sustain you, and with him you will have nothing to fear." As the sword's glowing abated, she took back the blade as she said, "Thank you." Adding a slight nod of the head, she added, "I appreciate your impartation of knowledge." "What just happened back there?" asked Ezekiel as they left the man. "He was imparting his knowledge of the light to me." "Where does this light come from?" "From the book of light." Her answer confused him as he asked, "How can a book provide you with the ability to make a sword glow?" "Because it is the light that comes directly from the source. Through it, our path is illuminated, so we might tell the darkness from the light. When we hide its word in our heart, they flow out of us so that the darkness around us and inside of us dissipates. It is only by having his light in us that we can have the strength to fight the darkness and accept him. This light is not only for us, but for others. We must share it with others so that not only they receive the light, but we also grow more in it. And what is this darkness you keep talking about? Darkness is many things. But in most cases, it is something that comes from within, from preconceptions people have about the world and their lack of understanding of the light. That is why we are searching for the book, so that people can see straight from the source's word what is light and what is darkness, so they might gain their own personal knowledge of the light. Not many have their own knowledge of the light. Many have only a basic understanding of it, and still more have only a borrowed light. She motioned to the patchwork of her sword. That is why I only have pieces, because without having the knowledge myself, I only get parts of it second-hand. And not everyone has a complete grasp of the light. In order for all of us to know and have the light for ourselves, we need the book. Then those who really seek the light can be illuminated and fully receive the knowledge it imparts. Is there only one book of light? She shook her head. There have been several copies over the years. Legend actually says that the book is a collection of the rays of light from the sources thrown to our planet. They say it just appeared one day in a bright flash of light, hovering above a hill where it never touched the ground. From there, the dreamers of old took it and made copies, which glowed with the same light as they distributed them to the people. She frowned as she added, "But since that day, there have been those that have tried to use the Book of Light's word for their own gain, misinterpreting its teachings in order to lead people deeper into the darkness. One of the greatest ones to do that is Kuka. He has written up his own Book of Light, the Book of Darkness, which he uses to reinforce his people's belief in his teachings and their blindness toward the dangers of living a life apart from the source. It may have been the same exact words as the Book of Light, but because it was not written with a personal knowledge of the source, the words have become corrupted. Is that something that the false dreamer is doing with his previous knowledge of the light?" She looked sad again as she replied, "Yes. His main job for Kuka is corrupting the light, but even his light was not that great before he fell. Some say that is why he fell." Sensing she was about to cry, he changed the subject as he said, "How long are we going to stay here?" He motioned to the cave in which the refugees of the light abode. "Until you have another dream to guide us where to go next." At the mention of sleep, he started to feel extremely tired from their extensive day. Yawning widely, he hoped it would be a while before he had the next dream. But as was his luck, that night he found himself standing in front of a large metal structure with a metal orb placed on top with the word... He squinted, but in the bright light from something off to his right, he could not make out what it said, though it looked like whatever it was wasn't written legibly. When he woke the next morning, Noah had her face hovering over his as she smiled at him excitedly. "Did you dream?" With a groan he rolled over, wishing he was back home in his bed with no annoying cowboy pirates bothering him. Shaking his body, she asked again, "Did you dream?" Yes, I dreamed. Can I get some sleep?" "You can sleep in the next land, but for now we have work to do. Come on." Making a sound like a cross between a groan and crying, he rose from the cot and followed her over to the man that had upgraded her sword. Beside him stood a young man who appeared to be a few years older than Noah. He was large and looked like he could crush a watermelon between his hands with no problem. "This is..." The man's name didn't stick in Ezekiel's mind as he listened to the words. As he tuned back into what the man was saying, he heard him tell Noah, "He'll be coming with you. I think it's better you have two swords." Noah seemed ready to protest, but when Ezekiel voiced his agreement, she conceded to his opinion as she said, "All right, just try and not slow us down." The young man, I'll call him Bob, grinned as he nodded his head. With their new companion, the three headed out of the cave through a back entrance that opened out into another section of trees, and so continued their journey for the Book of Light.